And we're live.
All right, Brent, what were you saying?
Decent pastor.
What were you saying?
I said, good morning, everybody.
No,
welcome,
you said something else.
Welcome to the podcast. Good to have Chris with us this morning.
What's up?
My dad used to call it LTO Benito. When we would have that at night, he'd be like,
LTO Benito.
Yeah, what are we doing for dinner? He'd be like, LTO Benito.
I'm going to need a translation
Come on.
that one.
I'm not saying it. You say it.
Beautiful,
No, El Tío,
the Uncle Beautiful.
Uncle.
Bonita?
Benito,
Oh, Benito.
Oh, Uncle Ben.
like little
Okay,
Ben.
Yeah.
the Uncle Ben's.
That was one of his favorite things to make for dinner.
Really?
It was just one of his favorite things to say.
Right. Yeah, that's what it was about.
Did you
I
ever
didn't
have?
realize your dad was multilingual. That's
Dude.
cool.
Just wanted to
He's
sound
so-
fancy.
He grew up in East LA, so
Did you guys not ever have the San Francisco treat?
no. We would do a lot of hamburger
It was
helper.
rice-a-roni.
Oh, rice-a-roni, yeah.
The San Francisco treat. That was their little slogan.
Oh, yeah.
When you said East LA, I went back to like Cheech. Singing, you know, born in East LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Good job, David. Way to,
Yeah.
What do you mean?
way to-
Just spin us up.
So your dad and Cheech. That's
All right, what now? How do we segue? How do we
should-
recover?
I think we should stop it and start over.
Chris Comp is here.
I already tried that.
yeah.
What? Did you say that already?
Try that. We just rolled right past it.
Our buddy Chris. El Tío con Cristo.
Con Cristo.
I don't know how you say it.
I don't think that's it.
You know, it's not.
I'm just going to let that lie there. That's
Can't
fine.
do- okay.
No.
Stop trying to speak Spanish.
All right.
Please.
Um,
Try best.
Spurgeon Legacy.
That is this week,
It's coming up.
Tuesday.
Did you see how I recovered?
Yeah.
Good job.
That was a good segue.
Yeah, this is serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We're ready. We're ready. People are registered. Volunteers are ready. Speakers are ready.
Cool.
I got hello, my name is badges.
Yeah.
What?
You're just setting yourself up on that
You know.
one.
Stinking badges.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is.
I heard
Yeah.
Princess Bride.
No.
Yeah, that's what I was.
The little
going to.
hello, my name is. That I got the badges.
I went in
We're
Inigo
ready.
Montoya because I know
Yeah.
you're a Princess Bride fan.
I went
So-
Eminem, so
Wait,
my
wait,
name
wait.
is.
Wait, you're a pastor and you listen to Eminem?
I'm aware of Eminem. And it's got one of the
Okay.
coolest grooves.
Well, he listens. He's a Swiftie.
Whoa.
That is simply not
Why
true.
are you outing him like that right now?
Why do you listen to Eminem?
It's got a killer groove.
Do you listen to the clean versions?
I'm mostly listening. Yeah, mostly. I don't know the difference. Yeah, I look for the non-explicit.
Clean versions exist.
Yeah, I only listen to a couple of his things because they've just got killer. Like what's the song? One Shot or something. It's just got a killer guitar intro.
My kids went through a phase. I don't remember, but I used to hear
Yeah, a lot of
some of
that.
it going in the
Yeah.
other room,
Yeah.
and it was like, all right, you need to turn that off. I've been on a Slick Rick kick because he's
Yeah.
clean,
Yeah.
old school hip hop.
Slick Rick. I gotta look him up.
Do you,
I don't know.
oh, you don't remember Slick?
No.
Oh yeah, Slick Rick was.
No,
the
No,
I
man,
he's
dude.
never going to give
Dude.
you up. He's never going to.
No,
That's a different Rick.
Oh,
yeah, it's not. The,
Oh man,
it's not the
He
same.
got Rick rolled on
Rick
the
rolled
podcast.
right there
Yeah.
on the podcast.
I went out to my man cave yesterday. The grandson was over, Hudson, and he's got this thing now where he'll take me out there and he'll point to the TV and he'll say music, which means
Nice.
he wants to watch a concert. And so like I'll flip through the YouTube guide and he'll be like,
Oh, he tells you.
that one. And he's got this uncanny ability to pick Joe Bonamassa, which makes Grandpa, pretty proud. But I went out yesterday, and somebody had been sleeping in my bed. And I turned on the TV, and it was left off on Jonas Brothers.
What?
I'm like, yeah, that was my. Like,
You need to get to the
you gotta
bottom
talk
of
what's
to
this.
going on here?
You gotta talk to your
Who was
daughter
in my
about
man
this.
You need to
cave
get to the
watching
bottom of this.
Jonas
something
Brothers?
you need to confess, Chad?
No,
Yeah.
I'm saying like my man cave is tainted now because somebody was watching the Jonas Brothers in it.
It is. I agree. We're gonna have to exercise it.
I know.
Have to go over with some,
Wow.
fling some water around.
And so I told Hudson, no Joe Bros, and he's like, no Joe Bros. All right.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. I'm going.
Go.
We ready?
Yes.
All right. You don't have anything else to say, Brent?
No, I'm good. You're in a mood, dude. You're trying to get me.
Riled
You're
up?
trying to get me incriminated today.
I'm trying to bring you to life.
I'm tired and just kind of grumpy today.
Yes, you are.
I know.
We
I'll be all right.
We forgive you.
Thank you.
We've been doing apologetics. A couple of weeks ago. Wait, what did you guys do last week? That one was
Evangelism and apologetics.
okay. Well, what's your?
Like you can't
Let's
separate.
go hand. You can't separate.
Yeah.
it.
They
Yeah.
go
Okay.
hand in hand.
So we're gonna continue with that. A couple of weeks ago, we did a video It was pretty cordial. It was an interaction on a college campus that was actually very kind. And then this one today is going to be different, which is the reason I chose it. So if you have kids in the room, it is beeped out, so like edited, but you can tell what this lady's saying. She's pretty.
Not a lot of mystery.
Not a lot of, left to the imagination as far as how she feels about this guy and what she's saying.
She's got strong opinions.
Anyway.
So this next segment is going to be PG-13.
Yeah, but there's a reason for this. That's not the
14,
reason why we're showing it is for shock value. Yeah. It's by a guy named Todd Friel. You've heard us talk about him before. He has a program named Wretched Radio. We're not huge fans of the way that he does everything. He can come off kind of snooty. He used to be like an anchor guy, I think, before he got saved, and he was kind of in TV. You can see that about him when he's talking, is he's kind of got this TV personality type way about him, which is actually kind of annoying sometimes. However,
he probably tunes in, so sorry, Todd.
Yeah.
Anyone who, I'm going to redeem him right now. Anyone who walks regularly onto a college campus and puts out a microphone and engages with college students is a stud. Like,
I was going to say, out of their mind.
That's why we don't do it.
Both can be true at the same time.
And Todd does that. He actually goes out and evangelizes and interacts with people. That's what this is going to have to do with. Before we walk into it, what's your worst fear, you guys personally, in doing apologetics, evangelizing? What's the greatest fear you have?
I just hate conflict.
Conflict sucks.
I don't like confrontation.
Actually, some people like conflict.
Yeah,
but you hate it.
I don't.
That's
well,
good.
I don't enjoy it, but I definitely hate it, and I definitely don't want conflict to be. I have a lot of conflict that's just my own personality or lunacy. Nobody else is going to jump in with me. Okay, I guess it's just me.
I agree with you.
But I don't like conflict that's got Christ's name attached to it.
Gotcha.
And so there's a part of me that's like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure I can wade into that muddy water.
Yeah.
And, there used to be these dudes on campus, University of Texas campus, where I went to school. He's standing literally on a milk crate, on a soapbox, preaching, you're going to hell. It's fire and brimstone stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's to the right people. It's all the frat boys and girls need to hear it, but it's the wrong message.
Yep.
That's my fears. I don't know how effective it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thankful for people that can do that in an effective sort of way.
Yeah.
I just haven't seen it be all that effective.
You guys are talking about bullhorn evangelism.
Yeah, bullhorn, but in this...
That's not an interaction.
Yeah, kind of like open air to a crowd.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you, though. I think the same way when we see this video, that same open mic thing...
Yeah.
It scares me at church when you guys are at church and I'm visiting and you guys do the open mic thing. That
scares me too.
Like what's going to happen next?
Yeah, I'm like, woo, who's, what are we going to hear?
Yeah.
So I love your pastoral,
general warning.
General warning. But there's, in that environment, at least people are gathered for a similar purpose and reason.
Sure.
And it's part of your culture. When you walk out of the door and you, pun, of the church and you walk into the rest of the world and you try to do that same thing, you are on their turf.
Yeah, for sure.
And it is everything that they say they don't like.
Yeah.
Why are you forcing this on us? Why are you, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So
for sure.
That kind of stuff to me is like.
Yeah, inside the church is a more controlled environment.
Yeah.
Outside the church, like you're playing by their rules. Like anything can happen. Anything goes. Like what in the world are they going to hurl at me? Yeah, for sure. And how's this going to feel?
Yeah, and I honor people who do that. I mean, there's people in the political world, who are doing the same thing. And I'm like, wow, you guys are bold.
Yeah. But conflict in general is one of those fears that you have.
Yeah.
Maybe.
If it's set up properly and I was prepped for it, maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm just not naturally a debater in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I actually like conflict and debates to some degree. But my fear is that I won't have the right answer.
Sure.
So I remember sitting at I was at a bar, like sitting at a bar having a pint when I was, I think, at school one time, and I got into this conversation with this guy, and it started out quite good.
Yeah.
And then he started just telling me all the reasons why he thought the Bible was false, and he was throwing out these outlandish claims, stuff I'd never heard of. I mean, it was weird stuff, and I remember thinking, I didn't know what to say, and I felt really stupid, and like I didn't have an answer.
Right.
And it was like that to every man an answer kind of thing. I got nothing here, man. And I walked away just feeling kind of confused and defeated.
Sure.
And like it was not great.
Yep.
Yeah, and the thing about it is a lot of these people they're called to it, or we think they are because they're built for it. They've got all those answers logged in their brain. I saw a dude who was talking about constitutionality and was it framed on Christian principles, blah, blah, blah. You could argue that all you want, but he immediately just goes boom, 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 like 10 different reasons why the objection was wrong. And I'm like, whoa. How do you just have that just right off the top? That means you've studied.
Yep.
That means you know those things well.
I watched that.
Right? And I'm like, wow, I'm not that deeply committed to these kinds of conversations. Apologetics in general, I'm just not built that way.
Yeah, getting in above our heads, I think, can be a fear.
Yeah.
Right. And
because once in a while,
yeah,
you will come up against somebody that is out of your league. Like, like not out of the league of the gospel and what your goal is, and we'll come around to talking to that. But as far as knowledge, ability to communicate, ability to attain things that they've studied, information, you're going like, I look like an idiot, like this person has me, just one-on-one.
Sure.
Like they win, I lose.
Sure.
You know? We might get there, but it's nice to know that sometimes there's people that are seeking.
Yes.
And sometimes there's people that aren't.
Yeah, for sure.
And we don't have to get too worked up about it if you're dealing with somebody who's not seeking at all. They're just wanting to be,
I think when we get to 1 Corinthians 1 and read the text at the end, we'll probably get into some of this. Yeah. So mine is even being
like the one-on-one. Like I'd rather have a one-on-one conversation than
that's where I'm at.
That's what I was shout to a crowd.
Yep.
Yep. And again, maybe there's some effectiveness to the people that shout at crowds. I just haven't seen a lot of it.
Yeah.
And so I just question, like, is it worth the effort? And maybe it is. I'm not saying it isn't. It's a question mark in my mind.
Well, I would also.
But I'd rather sit down over a cup of coffee or over a meal and just have an honest conversation. And I'm not so much even worried about, if somebody knows more than me or they got me, but like let's relate personally and just have a conversation about things that matter.
Yeah,
something more relational.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a natural form of communication in the world in which we live. Not that it wasn't before, but the truth is that just like foot washing. That it was very cultural then, to
had a meaning
herald
that it doesn't necessarily have now.
Exactly. We don't have paper boys that walk through the streets anymore heralding the headlines each morning. Why? Because we have other means in which to do that now that are better. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And so like back in the day, like they didn't have social media, they didn't have this, they didn't have that. They were heralding when they had a message. When Paul went to, Mars Hill, Athens, he was given a stage for 5 minutes to say what he needed to say. That was normal then, not so normal now. Now it just looks rude, right? And so a lot of it's cultural. But on the other hand of what you're saying, I like the one-on-one thing. I also don't like being outnumbered. That's one of my fears. So there's been times when I've been in public, I've gotten into a one-on-one conversation with someone, and the next thing I know, 3 or 4 of their buddies have accumulated, and I'm outnumbered. And like it starts to get intimidating, and I start to become like a joke, and there's little laughs going on and stuff like that, right? There's like interrogation that starts to happen. Also on the flip side, I prefer evangelizing by myself. I know we're supposed to go out, by twos scripturally, and we can all talk some other time about what that means. But I prefer when I'm evangelizing to be alone rather than with another Christian or 2 other Christians with one person that we're talking with. I really like it to be one-on-one.
We don't want them to feel ganged up on.
We don't want them to feel intimidated or ganged up on. We want it to be an honest interaction that can be everything that it should be able to be, So,
One of the things sometimes, just with apologetics in general, our approach, we can unintentionally create contention where it doesn't need to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to remember that when we're preparing and studying and learning, like we don't want to unintentionally, create a contentious environment.
Right.
Agreed. Totally.
Sometimes
agree.
It's unavoidable, but
but
we don't need to add to it.
Well, this one's easy. What's the greatest goal, obviously, of apologetics? What's the biggest goal of evangelism?
That you would win a new brother or sister to Christ. Or rather, let me put it a different way, that through your conversation that the Lord would win another person to Christ.
Yes.
Because all we're supposed to do is testify to what is true, right?
Yes.
Right.
And so, and Christ himself is the true witness, the first witness, right? So what did he do? Well, he just testified to what is true.
Yeah.
It's not like you have to do something special there, but man.
So our greatest goal would be to get the gospel out one way or another in that interaction.
Faithfully.
Right.
And then the greatest, scenario would be that these people actually
Right.
respond positively to that gospel.
Yeah.
But our goal is to get a gospel forward and heard.
Yep.
And then the secondary goal is to own them with our intellect. So
For sure.
Owned.
Well, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, we saw a very kind interaction between two people on a college campus. Today, we're going to see the flip side of that because it is a reality.
Yeah.
This is kind of one of many people's biggest fears is this clip that we're about to show, which is part of why we're showing it. Go ahead.
It's why we kind of said, I wonder if that was staged, because it was so polite.
Yeah.
And so like this, it normally doesn't go that way.
Yeah.
What we're going to watch today is normally.
Yeah.
Today seems more like what we
closer to
would
reality.
expect.
Yeah. And I don't think it's staged.
Well, and the problem is that, well, you'll see,
real.
and then we'll talk about it afterwards. So we're going to run this. We're going to do this just like we did last time. We'll run through the video. Anytime one of us wants him to stop, do something.
Yeah, and make it clear.
Make it clear.
Because a couple weeks ago, I thought you said
You're
stop,
right.
and
I
I stopped.
screwed
And
up.
you're like, what are you stopping for?
David puts,
And-
he hits the table a lot. So
right.
Yeah. All right, we ready to roll?
Yeah, let's
roll
go.
tape, as they say.
roll tape.
All right.
I think it's wonderful that you have come here to place blame and guilt upon us. I think it's wonderful that you have reminded us just how base and vile that we are. And I think, sir, that Christ would be quite pleased with you, because he did come to our world and he did say, get up on a stage, talk to people in masses, tell them how awful they are. Don't get on your knees and wash their feet. Don't pick up the prostitutes off of the street and help them better their lives. Don't go down here to downtown, sir, and take your fancy coat off and give it to a homeless man that needs it. Don't give him that wad of money that you've held in your hand this entire time that you've been on the stage. Okay? Why don't you take all of it you have, go down there, sir, and give us a demonstration of Christianity, because Christ did not say, get on this podium and say as I say. He said, do as I do. And I don't see you out here helping us with our homework. I don't see you giving us advice on how we should live our lives, how we should have meaningful, committed relationships with our partners of our choice. I don't see you doing any of this. What I see you do is pass judgment, and that is for God to do if God exists. That's his, it's not yours, sir. Work on yourself, work on your world, work on your community, work on your kids. They're gonna need it, and that is all I have to say.
She's kind of preaching a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind
She got a little fiery.
I'm a little
Yeah.
scared.
She's got a church background,
You detect,
and I bet you she's got
yeah.
she's got a story.
Yeah, there's a story.
An
there.
axe to
Right.
grind, perhaps?
And an axe to grind, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is she doesn't have enough of a church background, because did God not say to
Yeah.
go and proclaim the truth?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Jesus didn't say as I say. He's like, well, yeah, he did.
Yeah, kinda.
Jesus didn't
Yeah,
say,
he
get up
said
on a
that.
stage
Yeah.
and tell everybody all these things. Well, kind of
He
did.
kinda did.
You will
kinda
be
the-
my witnesses.
Yeah,
you
kind
know?
of the point of
Yeah.
the Great Commission.
you know,
Yeah.
But I think she's probably had a very negative church experience that it
Yep.
may not even be.
pretty obvious.
Yeah, like there's a version of Christianity that a lot of people have seen and experienced that's probably not something Jesus is happy with.
Right.
When you even
Right.
look at the letters to the churches in Revelation, churches can get it wrong very often, and I think she's experienced that.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
coming out pretty
Well,
clear.
and she's dead on right.
Yeah.
We walk around with a badge of hello, my name is Christian, and
Yeah.
then we go out into the world and we either cover it up with a jacket and we're no different than anybody else, or we just don't understand where the gospel, where the good news of Christ really does wreck
Yes.
you for every other type of interaction. It should be
Yeah.
a love interaction with the
Right.
rest of the world, and that's hard.
And I want to come back to this. Actually, you're hitting on something really good. We'll make our way back to it. So, what kind of tactic is she employing here?
Well,
Because it is a
I don't know what to call
strategy.
it.
It is a
I mean,
it
she's
is a
trying to win
tactic
an argument. She's trying to own Friel,
for sure.
playing probably a bit to the crowd that's
Yeah.
around her.
But
Right.
basically accusing him of being
There you go.
judgmental.
And
which
of not doing things that he should be doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're putting yourself up as this kind of model of standard of what's good and right, and now you're looking down on all of us and saying we're all bad and that you're the standard of right,
Yes.
and you're being judgmental and it's only God's place to judge and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what he said before this.
Correct. We don't have
in
the whole
fairness,
clip.
so maybe
Yeah.
maybe she's responding to something he said, but where he goes from here becomes very clear that he's not
For
doing
sure.
that.
But
It's the hypocrite argument. It's just clearly. I mean, you're a hypocrite.
She's dismantling his Christianity.
She's trying to say you don't believe what you say you believe. But I like in thinking about it and writing it down. It's like, but hang on a second. Her worldview is screwed up.
Yep.
Because all she hears is that to be a Christian means to do those things. What she doesn't really hear about is to be a Christian is to respond to that gift of the gospel.
Right, who Christ is.
Yeah.
And Christ didn't come to create a moral people. He didn't come to create goody two shoes people.
Right.
Forgive me. That's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's their message. We're good people, right? And we've seen people. We have friends whose kids have left, the Christian church to go to the Mormon church because, but he's a good guy, Dad, and he does things that the Christians around us don't do.
Right.
And it's all just lipstick on a pig because once you get down to it, we're all broken.
Yeah.
And they're hiding all their sins behind the scenes too. So, but that's their message.
But the hypocrite argument is very effective because we've owned that as the church so often.
Yeah, because it's true.
One of my questions is, where does that come from? Because what she says here to Todd is not something unique to her. This is how most non-believers approach or attack Christians. Why? Like, where does that come from? That they go for the jugular with.
Because most Christians can't own the fact that they're hypocrites.
Because it's true, it's low hanging fruit.
So because we've earned most of it.
We've earned it,
by putting out a false self-righteousness.
Yes.
Something that's not Christianity or gospel.
Yeah.
Before we continue, because Todd's about to respond to this, how do you think most people would respond to that attack that we just heard?
By taking offense and getting angry.
I know I would. Like that's my initial response. That's why it's weird when I'm watching this and I'm hearing them. I'm thinking like, what would be my natural instinct, my natural response to something like this, and it would be to hit back.
Right.
Which then plays into all of it. I don't know if that would be your guy. Like before,
I'm much more godly than that.
Before you saw this, would you do what he did without giving it away? What he's about to do? Would you have responded that way with it?
I mean,
I would have curled up and started whimpering.
I would have left about midway through.
Folded up your chair, your microphone.
Just walked away.
Midway through her rant, I would have left.
You win.
I would have been home at that point.
It's like I'm so embarrassed right now. She knows me. Does she have a camera on me?
That's awesome.
I asked my wife. I was talking with her briefly about this. So much more intelligent than I. She says, "Oh yeah, that's just the hypocrite argument." I'm like, "Where do you get this? What are you reading that I'm not reading? You need to give me the crib notes or something." And she said, "Yeah, you just look them square in the face and say, yeah, you're right."
Yeah.
And that's what Todd does. He's like, "Yeah, you're right."
Let's roll it. You're giving it away.
All right.
No, I'm segue.
Rolling tape.
Okay. Well, ignoring the fact that she just judged me for judging people, and assuming, of course, that Christians do none of those things, like build homeless shelters and adopt more kids than people who are not Christians do, and who give more than people who are not Christians, despite all those evidences of salt and light, Christians are the adopting people, Christians are the feeding people, Christians are the people who are taking care of the homeless. And you know what, though? I will tell you this. Christians are still sinners. I'll tell you that for a fact. Look, if I've given the impression, by the way, this is about $4. If I've given the impression that I'm better than you, I'm sorry. Because I did not come here to tell you that.
That's huge right there. That right there is like monumental. Just his self-admittance.
Right.
That if I have put off in any way the fact that I'm better than you, let's just kill that right now.
Yeah.
I want to tell you that is not true. And I'm sorry if I have. That's what more Christians need to do.
Absolutely.
Let's start right there with our evangelism.
He started out with a little bit of defensiveness.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. Yeah.
Just so that we're clear on that, because we were like, what he's about to say is going to be the right. No, he started out kind of saying, well, beside the fact that these things are true. Yeah.
Right.
Then he got to the good stuff. He said, hey.
Well, I think it's going to get better, but this is the beginning of what I think is the best possible way that someone could respond to what that lady has just done to him.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it just looks like, okay, that was a mic drop, and this lady just pulled my pants down. It's time to leave, right? Like, what do you do? Well, you do that. You actually you actually support and follow that thing they just attacked you with, and no one's going to expect that. And of course, we'll come back and talk about all the ways that this is strong and powerful. But yeah, that right there is the turning point where he said, if I've given you the impression that I'm better than you, I'm sorry. Yep. That's the turning point. All right.
I want to know why he's holding $4.
I think we had to watch the whole clip.
I want to know,
probably. Yeah.
Why? Anyway, we're ready to roll.
Anyway, remember, you guys can stop him when you need to. Okay.
No, I'm excited.
This
is better than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, come on.
This is good.
Do you ever doubt, Don?
Don't go there.
All right, rolling tape again.
I'm better than you. That's the last thing. I will, you know what? I'll tell you what. I will proclaim to you, I am hands down the worst person here right now. I'm telling you, I will go to the mattresses or the mats on that one, wrestling with you. I am the worst person. If there is anybody in this place right now that is a sinner, it is I. I'll take myself through the... Do you want to hear something amazing? Do you think I'm an arrogant jerk? Okay, I used to be even worse, if you can imagine that. I actually studied to be a pastor, and you know what? I wasn't even a Christian at the time. But anybody who didn't measure up to my theological standard, I thought I was superior, and I was a better person. I was an arrogant slime ball. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I would take advantage of you in a heartbeat. I'd get your money, get something I wanted from you. I'm telling you, I'm the worst of the worst. My thought life, if you could look inside of my brain, it is so disgusting and vile. I'm not here to tell you I'm better than you. You want to look at my track record of life? You're right, I don't feed enough people. I don't adopt enough people. You're right, I don't. I don't help you with your homework. I don't. And you know what? I'm a bad person. I was in the bottom of the barrel, and God saw fit to scrape down and save me, a sinner. So if I gave you the impression I'm superior, I'm sorry, because I'm not. I am a beggar who has been shown bread. I was thirsty, and God gave me living water, and the only reason I came here was to simply share with you there is something amazing out there called the good news of Jesus Christ, that God died for sinners. Why would I come here today? I'm not asking for money. I'm not taking up a collection. I'm not looking to sign anybody up for my Twitter account. I'm here to simply, I'm going to leave, and then you're not going to see me anymore. I'm not getting anything out of this but to share with you something that I know is true. I know this to be true. God died for sinners. That's how good he is. He died for you, and I came to proclaim it today. I know the reputation of Christianity is bad. I know we don't feed enough. That's our problem. We don't say enough good things. That's our problem. We don't go overseas and malaria and people die. We don't do enough. But it's even worse than that. It's not just the stuff we fail to do. Those are sins of omission. Consider our sins of commission. How many evil things have you done? I mean, really, okay, let me ask you, and I ask this gently. How many poor people have you fed today? Huh? Mm-hmm. How many orphans did you adopt today? How many strangers did you walk with? Have you helped anybody with their homework today? If we're going to use that standard, we are all falling short. That's the point. We don't do what we should, and the things that we shouldn't do, we do. That is our problem. And is there anything today that we can agree with that nobody does enough good? Can we agree with that? Fine. Can we also agree that we all do things that are bad? You don't have to admit them. I don't need to see your resume. But do we not all lust? Do we not all lie? Do we not all take things that don't belong to us, downloading music or answers from somebody else, or a pencil we don't return to somebody's office? Did we not all dishonor our parents by being little snotty kids who didn't disobey or threw a tantrum and fell down on the floor? Or how's about the fact that you look at pornography? Does that not dishonor your mom and dad? Think of all the things that you've done. And God will make sure that you receive what you deserve. It's as simple as that. Justice will be done. It is certain. It's called Judgment Day. But before that day comes, you have a chance to be forgiven. Because the punishment you deserve, Jesus Christ took for you. The death that you deserve, Jesus died for you. And you can trust him because he rose from the dead, defeating death. And you don't have to be scared to meet God anymore. You don't have to be scared of the grave. He will forgive you if you will repent and put your trust in him today. And all of your sins will be forgiven.
If you are... There it is. I love the way he levels the playing field. Right? Because she did have the upper hand with the whole, hey, Christians should have a separate standard than we do. How come you guys suck at it? And then he just pretty subtly, in a pretty good way, turns it around and goes, like, where do you get that from? Like, we're all in the same boat here, before God.
Yeah, he pulled the rug out not in a I'm going to own you sort of a way, but like, sure. I'm going to help you see truth. sort of a way, and it was really good.
Yeah. So that goes back to where you started earlier. I had two different things that I just wrote down for myself. Are Christians better than everyone else is a question number one. Yeah, where do non-believers get this? I think we already talked about this, where non-believers get this notion, didn't we? That Christians are better than everybody else?
There's a
part of it's from us, and part of it's from what they just perceive it should look like.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. And then the follow-up question would be, should Christians be better people than everyone else? And if so, why?
In a sense, yes, and in a sense, no.
Okay. Yeah.
Like we shouldn't think we're better than anybody else.
No. Yeah, so that...
However,
right.
As Christians, like our good works should shine to the world to show them something about who Christ is.
Right.
Well, we're called to holiness and we're called to be righteous.
Right.
But that comes from outside of us. So if there's any righteousness in me or any holiness or anything good in me, it's alien to me. It came from Christ. And so there's nothing wrong with, pointing that out. Like, if you see something good in a Christian, it goes back to him. It's not something I'm doing. But somehow Christians seem to forget that over time and then start to believe that they're better.
Yes.
Right.
And that's where we get into some problems.
Agreed.
Because we're just not.
No, we're just not.
So I'm the guy at the table with a day job, and I go to work every day. Like I have a job where I deal with people, and sometimes a lot of contention and drama and weird things and entitled people, and every day it's at the forefront of my mind that like I don't always lead with, hey, I have this other job where I'm a pastor, right? So it's not that I'm trying to hide it; it just doesn't come up. But I think about every day, what if somebody finds out this about me, that I'm a pastor? Right? I would rather than say, what, that doesn't make sense. Like I want them to say, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
But just based on the way they interact with people, and it's just in the forefront of my mind every day.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be better than anybody else or anything like that. I just want to represent Christ well.
Right.
For sure.
What will people think if they hear that you're a Jesus freak?
Right. What will they think?
Brent, that was so good, dude.
Wow.
I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah, that was.
Do we have any Robert Palmer to go
You're not
with
as cranky today as you think you are.
Just popped in my mind. When a
huge.
DC
You are
talk,
tired.
Yeah.
dude. When a DC talk lyric pops in your mind,
you
from
better-
from
you
the-
gotta
from
do
the
it.
'90s. You just gotta.
You better play it.
I salute you for that.
How did this chick's aggression and passion and momentum and kind of even her schooling taking him to task in front of all these people? I mean, it did look kind of like a mic drop. How did it end up ultimately playing into his hand?
Oh man, she made his point for him. I mean, she just kind of set out the table. You especially love it when someone comes to you and you're having a conflict or something like that, and they sort of start out with the conversation, and they said, and I've had this kind of thing with my kids at times. Well, I know that this and this, and I know that that and that. So they're trying to answer my objections right away. And I'm like, okay. So that now that those are on the table, they're all fair game, right? And as far as I'm concerned, I think it's funny that in the video, if I remember right, she steps away from the mic.
Yeah,
she's done.
I think she walks away.
She probably even
he
walks
kind of
away.
watches. It looks like he's watching her go while he starts to respond.
Right.
Like, really, you're not going to hear my response?
Yeah. So there's no listening, but those who did stay around and hear, he could at least. I mean, and he lets the air out of her balloon very slowly.
No.
Yeah.
Very slowly.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. She's just basically saying, yeah, we're all slime balls.
Right.
The world's broken.
Right.
Well, I think
Yeah.
for Friel, there's a difference between trying to win an argument versus trying to win a person.
Yeah.
Right. And like it seemed evident that like he cared about the person or the people.
Yeah.
That were
Goal
listening. He
being gospel.
Right.
And seeing an opening.
Right. He wasn't
Yeah.
just trying to be right or win an argument
Right.
or
Yes.
own anybody. That there was a compassion for people to help them understand truth.
Can go back to that in a sec. But the other thing she did was she created a standard.
Wow.
And he says, okay, if that's our standard, let's look at that. Right? Same thing. She set the table. Go back to that idea that she really cares for people. I've been watching this dude who's just, he's a biochemist, I believe is the proper term. He's brilliant. Dr. James Tour, Tour. He's down in Rice. And he's one of these guys that builds nanobots, to like change the world. And he loves Jesus so deeply. And he has a podcast, he has teachings, he has all this stuff. And he always, always, always is leading with, I love you. I want you to know this Jesus. I want you, if you don't believe that the resurrection really happened, call me. Here's my email. We'll set up a time to talk. I mean, he's just, and I'm like, dude, he doesn't have time to do all this.
Yeah.
How does he have time to do all this? But he's always leading with that same thing. I want you to be, I want you to know him. I'm like, wow, how would that fuel our evangelistic conversations, or at least our zeal?
Yeah.
Right? For the Lord ought to fuel these things in a way that it's just totally in a different plane.
Yes.
That way, any conversation you had, that person's going to come away probably knowing two things. Wow, this guy's really a Jesus freak. He really does. He believes what he's saying.
Sorry.
Right? But then secondly, he really cared for me. Right?
Yeah. The frustrating thing I see in the church very often, and I've perpetuated it too, so I'm guilty, is that we create this us and them paradigm.
Yep.
So we're the good people, they're the bad people, and so it's always like we're the, we're on the right side.
And she's presupposing that.
She is. She's completely.
She already knows that.
And I see it politically. I see it in across all the arenas, and it's so frustrating because we're all in the same spot. The foot of the cross is kind of like levels the playing field, and so this idea that we're all scum, or we're all sinners, or we're all have fallen short of the glory of God, is the way the Bible would say it. We don't start there.
Agreed.
There's this weird starting point where, it's and this is where she's starting. And so I loved where he went with it, because he just basically said, no, I'm if you're talking about that, I'm the worst of the bunch.
It's so powerful, again, to level the playing field, to say, hey, first of all, you and I are the same. I have the same problem you do. You have the same problem I do, right? And that's why I love when he just said, I'm sorry if I gave you the impression that I'm something better, because a lot of times Christians do. They live that way, they talk that way, they act that way, right? To where a non-believer can look at us and presuppose, well, they just think they're better than us. Right. Because a lot of Christians absolutely walk around acting like they're better than everybody else.
Actually, this isn't a brag on what we do at the door, but this is the first church I've been a part of where from the front consistently that's modeled. Totally. We often will say, things like, we're the worst sinners we know, or, when we make that very clear. People will come and say, I was afraid the roof might have caved in when I came that day. And it's like, well, we tested out that
we came in before you did.
Every day we walk in.
We came in first and it didn't cave in, so you're probably okay. People just aren't used to hearing that, especially from a pastor.
Right.
And I love that that's always been, again, we're not glorying in our sin or our depravity, but we're the chief sinners.
Paul exemplified that for us, though, right?
Yeah.
He said, "I'm the chief sinner among men," and then started listing, some of his qualifications, if you will. Yeah. And it's like, oh, wait, if Paul can do that, why can't we? Again, and I like that you're not 13. Yeah, I like that we're not glorying in our sin and that kind of thing. And
I just want us to. I think we all see here, and this is part of what I like about this video, is how powerful it is, and how advancing it is to get to your goal of sharing the gospel.
Right.
For the Christian to confess, to start with their sinfulness publicly. We do not do this enough, like you're talking about. Confession is so powerful. Admittance, us admitting first and foremost to the person in front of us that I think I'm worse than you as far as who I am and what I know about myself. That right there allows the door to be at least cracked open.
Yeah.
And not only admitting it, but believing it.
No.
Right? Like not
being honest
not a
about
false
it.
humility or false admittance, but understanding who you are before God.
Well, and what's so cool about it, not only that it's true, that it's a proper way to move towards gospel, is that it's also unexpected to the non-believer. It is so mind-blowing sometimes. Like, I can't believe you just said that. I can't believe you just did that. I think some people that were watching that day had to have said that to themselves once they heard Todd's response. Mm-hmm. That is not what I expected this dude to do, right? Because we have two options. After we've just been ruined publicly, like embarrassed publicly like that, we're either going to, it's fight or flight, right?
Yep.
It's either like, I'm going to get defensive, I'm going to get aggressive, I'm going to hit you back twice as hard as you just hit me. This is not what they expect. Is, you know what? You're right. I don't do enough. I don't live as good as I should. Mm-hmm. And that just changes everything. It changes the entire tone of everything that is about to follow, which gets us toward our goal of gospel proclamation.
Yep.
And that's what he was able to do, using himself as an example, basically sharing his testimony of filth to God's goodness as the gospel being proclaimed. And this is something we can do, really, if you think about it, no matter what the scenario is, evangelistically, is we can always take the high ground or the low ground and go to our own need for Jesus out of almost anything that someone's throwing at us, and it's the right way to go. It's going to get you to where you need to go.
It's a form of surrender.
Yes.
And what you're saying is, no, we're not. I'm not going to fight you on that.
Right.
In fact, let me pile on. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then that kind of diffuses that conversation. Like we talked about, what do we fear? Like I don't like the conflict.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You
But
know.
that removes the threat.
Right.
Yes.
Like all of a sudden you've just like, there's no more threat. You know, I'm not the
You've
the
just
guy
put
that's
your
gonna-
white flag up.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Right.
great.
You put your sword down and
Yeah.
your
Like,
flag
hold
up.
on.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You know, let's move on.
Yeah.
So I concede your point, you know, and yield back the time to the you know the gentleman from L.A. County.
And I've seen this work. Like I've employed this over the years because it's just I think how we should share with people. I remember years ago I was at a customer's house cleaning their chimney, and this guy was clearly the homosexual, and he was actually like hitting on me, like he wasn't even like trying to hide it. It was like a very uncomfortable situation, but I was maintaining. We had just planted the church, so I was a pastor, and I'm thinking about my testimony, like you're talking about with your vocation, and so I'm praying the whole time for like an opportunity. And finally, he follows me out to get the bill afterward to the van. And it had come up at that point that I had just planted a church. He was asking me a bunch of questions. So he just reared back with this smile, like, I got you. And he goes, so what do you think about my lifestyle? And he's just like,
wow.
And he just had me. And I said, well, what I think is that, or he goes, what do you think about my lifestyle? Do you think that God is displeased with how I live my life? And I said, I do. But I said, like the same way that he's displeased with the way that I live mine. And I went into my challenges that aren't his challenges, but are just as problematic before a holy God.
Amen. Yeah.
Right? So even though I can't say like, oh, I share your same lifestyle desires, I can say like, I'm screwed also. Like homosexuality isn't, what gets you to hell. Like being a sinner, falling short of the glory of God is what gets you there. Let me share with you some of the things that I struggle, even though I don't struggle with what you do. Right. And it actually changed the whole tone. It was rad. Like it really worked out great, and I was able to pray with him and whatnot. So it was kind of neat. So this is a legit tactic, is my point. Yeah. Like this is something that any of us can take, no matter how aggressive the person is to actually take the humble path. And that elevates the gospel once you employ humility.
I'm just sitting here responding to that in my brain. I'm going, that I had never thought of that, the way that it can diffuse.
Yeah.
And I realize that one of the fears that I probably have is like you said earlier, that I don't have an answer. I feel like I ought to have the answer.
Yeah.
Well, we do have the answer. He's redeeming us.
Yeah.
Right. So, but the reality is like, oh, I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah. No, totally.
I just have to be the guy with the eyes open in the room.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, that is diffusing some things in my own brain.
Yeah.
Or even,
so I'm
I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
I can just be the most honest guy in the room.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the most loving guy, the most humble guy. There's some.
right.
I mean, all the things that were
So then you don't have to say
Christ-like.
the perfect words.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that changes everything as far as our confidence going into evangelistic opportunities.
Yeah.
Is once we can make that shift. So that's good that you brought that up.
Yeah.
That it's not about how much we know, how much we can retain, how well we can answer somebody who's smarter and more knowledgeable than us. It's about how can we can be more honest, more humble, right? More loving.
Yeah.
We stand our ground with what we know to be true, which is that Jesus is the best thing about me, right? And he's the best thing about you too.
Well, and when you think about apologetics, that's one of the greatest apologetic there is when we return hostility with humility and kindness something unexpected. It's like that. It's hard to make sense of that apart from Christ in us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
So this is an apologetic we're talking about today of humility, right? Which actually authenticates the message. It actually authenticates the gospel. When it's paired with gospel characteristics.
That's awesome.
Things that gospel does. Real quick,
the Bible tells us that if people are seeking God, that they'll find Him. Right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's not up to you or to me to convince people.
Right.
It's up to us to just deliver the mail, like we talked about.
Yes.
Right. Deliver the message faithfully, and then God does the work of whether that's effective or not effective.
Totally.
And so we're free to kind of be humble, and we're free to be kind, and we're free to be charitable to people, and free to not take offense, at their silly arguments. that, we're free to love people and just trust that God's going to do what God's going to do with it.
Totally. Yeah. In fact, let's look at that. Let's close by just reading through a little bit of 1 Corinthians chapter 1, where Paul actually talks about this. There's actually some good information in here that directly speaks to everything that we just saw and have been speaking to, which Paul himself brings out. Verse 18, starting in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18, for the word of the cross is folly or foolishness, absolutely, to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it's the power of God, for it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and the discernment of the discerning. I will thwart. Where is the one, therefore, verse 20, who is wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God the world did not know God through wisdom, it pleased God through the folly of what we preach to save those who believe. For Jews demand signs, Greeks seek wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified. So forget the knowledge part, right? Like we were just talking about. We preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews, folly to Gentiles, but to those who are called, either one, Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. What's being brought out here in this first section? Or what's the main thing we should latch onto?
The gospel is the power, not our knowledge.
There you go. So like I'm looking at this gal, I'm looking at the way that she came out of the gate and attacked him. And if you're looking at it in a fleshly sense, it looks like, well, that was a pretty good round she just had. Yeah. Almost like game over type of thing, right? And so you're expecting, like we talked about, someone to come back twice as hard or twice as passionate or twice as fiery as her to win, that's the way it's going to go. But the foolishness of what we do is actually that we don't employ those kind of tactics, right?
Right.
That we just stick to our game of Christ being the point. And we speak that, we share that with the characteristics of the gospel, and that is going to look like foolishness. Mm-hmm. It is going to look like you've lost even maybe to the non-believer, but it's actually winning. Like what Todd did with his response was winning, actually, not losing. But it probably looked stupid to a lot of people watching that day, right? So anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. At the end of the day, either we believe that the gospel has power or it doesn't.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think a lot of times, we kind of talked about this last week, but when we're preparing, apologetically, we're thinking about winning arguments and beefing up our knowledge. And it's good. It's good to beef up our knowledge, and you're not saying that's a bad thing.
It's good to know why.
But at the end of the day, it's God who does the saving, not our ability to win an argument that does the saving, right? Yep. And we've got to remember that and believe that the gospel has power.
For sure.
Well, and that it's a win when we preach it. So what happens afterwards it's not up to us.
No, we met the goal.
So the goal, what Jesus has asked us to do is let people know about his work on the cross. When we do that, we've won. We've done what he's asked us to do.
Yes.
That's it. We can walk away feeling good about it regardless of what happens from there.
Yes.
The other thing we don't know is what happens from there.
Correct.
So she might storm off mad, but a year later, that seed that was planted or whatever was said might have an impact. And so,
right.
For sure. I don't know.
And it also comes back, I'm trying to remember who said it, but I think it was in a management context or something like that, or maybe a restaurateur or something. And people will rarely remember what you say.
Yeah.
But they will definitely remember how you said it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, Todd there in that video, man, like we've been talking about, and you, in your example, you're responding in love and in kindness.
Right.
It's not a fight.
Right.
It's just not a fight.
Yeah, the goal's not a fight.
Yeah. And so, Paul again is telling us, don't play on their playing field.
Right.
Like Jews are going to look for signs, right? They're religious people. What are the signs? And then the Greeks are going to look for wisdom. It's okay. That's an argument thing, right?
Yes.
Don't play there.
Thank you.
Just don't play there.
What I was trying to say, but better. Thank you.
So and I think that's where I do in any kind of conversation. It's like, even people struggling with faith and trying to understand what their faith is and what's the reality. I mean, people in the Catholic Church, the guy sitting next to me on a plane, I had this long conversation with him, question after question after question. And part of it was just like, Lord, you're just going to have to open his eyes. We can talk about this all day. Mm-hmm. And he's just got all these arguments, but you got to open his eyes, Yep. So that's where you have to look at someone in love as someone who could potentially be walking side by side with you in eternity, right?
Right.
So.
Yep. All right, we'll close out the very end of this. For consider, verse 26, you're calling brothers. So here we go. This is that self-admittance part. Paul's doing it for us. He's telling us who we are, the kind of people that make up the army of saints. Not many of you were wise, according to worldly standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of noble birth, but God chose what is foolish. So it is okay for us to debase ourselves as far as who we are and what we know and in and of ourselves. He chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. And so if Paul can say that this is who we are, it's okay for us to be able to openly admit to others that this is actually who we are apart from Christ, right? Yeah. This is where God found us. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are, so that no human being, and here's the whole point of it all, might boast in the presence of God. I mean, Todd could have come back and went down that road. Well, I've done this, and I've done that, and I've done that, right? And he doesn't. He goes to the only thing that he has to boast in, and that's the proper answer. That's the right response, right? And because of him, Christ, God, you are in Christ, who became to us wisdom from God, righteousness and sanctification and redemption, so that as it is written, let the one who boasts boast in the Lord. And I feel like that was a pretty good example. What we saw today on film in that exchange was a pretty good example of a Christian boasting in the Lord, and that being probably the best tactic we have evangelistically. So, it's a good apologetic, boasting in Christ and not in ourselves. So, all right, anything else to close? Thanks for sitting through that. We'll do something else next week. We'll continue. Maybe we'll open with Jesus Freak.
I'm gonna go find that video.
I haven't thought of that song for years.
I don't know.
I'll
why.
have you know.
I don't know why it popped into my head.
Well, okay.
Sorry.
No apology needed on that one.
Chris, thank you for being on, sir.
Sure.
Always love it when you come on.
Love hanging
Again,
with you guys.
Spurgeon Legacy is Tuesday. It's in a few days if you guys can all remember to pray.
We'll be here that week.
For all the pastors that are coming, all the volunteers that are going to be there, and just the entire event, that it just glorifies God and that it's powerful, meaningful, memorable, long-lasting. Please do that. Keep us all in prayer for that. So, okay, why don't you guys pray us out of here?
All right, Father, thanks for today and our conversation. Pray that it's helpful to people. Just thanks for all that you're doing everywhere. Help us to just be reminded, first and foremost, that you are at work always, and help us to be reminded just of who we are in light of who you are, and that we would walk into the world with humility and with charity, and people that are eager to look for opportunities to proclaim the gospel and have meaningful conversations with those around us. And we ask in Christ's name, amen.
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 Amen.